I will now call to order the study session meeting of July 18th, 2022. Members of the public are invited to attend in-person city council meetings in council chambers on the lower level of City Hall. Public access to tonight's meeting is also available on the local government access channel 8 for Comcast subscribers, on the city's YouTube channel online, and by telephone using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford.
Here.
Councilmember Witkovich.
Here.
Councilmember Hadamio.
Here.
Councilmember Kondo.
Here.
Councilmember Lukman Hiramasa.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 items on the agenda for tonight. We are going to shake it up a little bit, and we're going to start with C, the 2022 4th of July fireworks discussion. So we started this conversation last week. This is a part 2. I know we all had a minute to kind of think. We still have information in the packet from before. I think where we can begin the conversation is, and I would like to hear from every council member. We can go through once, and then we can respond and go through a second time and see if we can get to consensus. Without Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, we were even, and we were evenly split.
No pressure.
So we'll see where we land. But I know a lot of people also did some thinking and, digging in and looking at the comments online and kind of reflecting on what might be the best way to go. So let's just start with, and I'll probably just go. We'll just start with maybe Councilmember Witkovich and work our way around the dais. And we'll think about, do we want to do something next July 4th? Or do we want to do something at some point this year? So I think if we can start there, then we can see where we are as a council, and then we can move into details after that. You want to start?
I hate starting.
No pressure, I know. I can flip it. We'll see. Councilmember Walker, do you want to start?
Yes, ma'am. I'll start out.
Give it a go.
Madam Mayor, my opinion has not changed on this issue. I feel like it is fiscally foolish to do this. I feel like this event would be very low attended, given that we're going to need extra marketing and extra staff. I just feel like this could cost several $100s, if not more, per person. And I just feel like it would be money much better spent next year. And so my opinion is unchanged, ma'am.
Okay, so you are saying July 4th, 2023.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Sorry if my dogs bark, guys. My opinion has not changed at all, and I just want to clarify that. I did go back and read all the comments. I read the email from the resident today. I felt like the comments, although emotional, were about 50-50. Some of the people understood what the issue was. And I really think, I do think that it's in our best interest to wait until next year. And there were a couple comments on the Facebook page about, what are we doing with the money? Well, let's put next year's money in with this year's money and make it a huge show that they'll never forget. I also feel like we should be honest, not that we haven't been honest and transparent with what the issue is, but a lot of people still think it was a rain delay, and it wasn't a rain delay. I know that some people understand that it's that there was a manufacturer defect, and, like I said last week, the company's been with us a long time. My next point has to do with Diana last week and listening to the chief. And I am not in favor of putting more stress on our communications team and our events team. I believe that they could do it, but it would not be up to, I don't believe it would be up to the standards that we like as a Northglenn, as a city. And as Chief said, he's got to give his guys off sometime, holidays off sometimes. And those two things really weighed heavily on my mind. Can we, knowing that we have one person who's leaving us and one staff member who is still out ill, and we don't know, I mean, even from my perspective, because I'm in constant contact with that person, we don't know when that person will come back. So I just don't think it's fair to our staff to throw that on them either. I think we could make a great event next year, really publicize it, and, get it out that it's going to be beyond what it would have been, to keep our people, our residents happy. But I really think the split is 50-50. I'm against putting the extra pressure on our events team, especially, as I mentioned, the two people that would not be there to help, and Diana, and the police department. I'm just totally against it. I would like to put the 50,000 from next year with this 50,000 and do a blowout show.
Thank you. Councilmember Goff?
Thank you. Well, one of the things when I hear about using this money next year to make an even bigger, more special show next year, is then I think, what are we going to do the year after that? And so if we do not do it this year, I don't think we need to go crazy next year, because then we're raising expectations and that have to be carried forward. I'm maybe not as adamant as I was last time about doing it sometime this year, but I still do think we can do it. I think if we work with, our staff can figure out a day to do it that's not going to be horribly stressful or, too demanding on services. It could be, later in the year. We've had several different options. I feel like in some ways, the damage has been done. It's not really bad damage or anything, but I mean, people came and they were disappointed in it because it didn't happen. So if we could do something this year to make up for that, I think that would be better for our community, and I know they'd appreciate it.
Okay. Councilmember Lippman-Hirma.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So last week I was divided. My initial gut feeling was, let's just put this off until next year. And then the opportunity or the option to have it on Veterans Day was what really piqued my interest. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Maybe that's something that we can work with the patriotic theme fireworks. But now that I've sat on it, I'm kind of going back to my initial gut feeling of it just seems, and again, listening to Chief May and our staff, that it seems like it is a lot of work to put on a whole nother event. Chief was like, September 3rd for Labor Day really isn't going to work because I got to give my guys time off. So listening to that, and not to repeat everything that was already said, I'm leaning again towards let's just hold off. I did read a lot of the comments as well. And, and I truly do feel for all the residents who took their families out, who took their kids out, and then were very disappointed. I think a lot of those reactions were, as was mentioned before, boils down to a trust issue where our community they just weren't aware of the reasons why we didn't hold the fireworks on the rain date that was put out. And so some of those issues were what came up, why didn't we just have it on the rain date? And I think, the community, some of them just were not aware that it was more technical issues that are not going to allow it. So as Councilmember Goff said, the heat of the moment has passed. And I think, now is a good time to just kind of settle down and let's see what we can do. I do think that next year is better. Veterans Day is still kind of near and dear to my heart. So I think either way, we should do something special, whether it involves fireworks. But I would say that I'm leaning towards let's do this next year just because of my concerns for staff capacity. There's so many events going on right now. Every week there's something in the park. There's the local Groove, and I'm going to mess up that name, Groove and Gov. So there's so much going on that maybe it's just better to do it next year and have a nice event, whether it's an additional 50,000 or not, maybe not that extreme, since there's a lot of things that money can be put. But, I also want to say that I feel for our residents as well, and somehow we can make it up. Thank you.
Councilmember Khan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if you're watching on TV, I'm not wearing a Harry Potter cloaking device or anything. I am actually in the room.
Oh.
And, okay, yeah, either that or I'm wearing a beige jacket. So, first of all, I read the email that Joanna had sent out earlier. The sentiment pretty much matches what I've kind of detected, and that is nobody has called me, nobody has text messaged me, nobody has emailed me. with any particular complaint. It's been about 2 weeks. The other thing is when I read the packet and I see that we have some things about pedestrian roadway safety, and what attracts me is this notion of having a van that we could contract to be able to catch speeders. And if I do the math there, I think it's going to be about 63,000. So, you know, if maybe we should just defer on having fireworks this year, and some of that money could go to something more demonstrable that shows that the city cares about safety of our people. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I really believe that we could use the 25, or maybe even the credited additional 25,000 for other tangible and real and important initiatives.
Councilmember Carmio?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My point of view has also changed. I do believe that we should give our staff and the PD, the break that they, dearly need. I've been in support of our staff and police department. I know that I had an idea of having Labor Day as an idea, and I do not believe that's not a great idea, like reflecting on it after a while there. As some other ideas do seem more feasible, I do feel that that we should, utilize, first of all, like we do not have our events guru, Stephen Stokes. I'd love to have him here to be able to make this full and make sure it's the way it should be, as it's been for years, as we expect for our events here at Northglenn. And I do feel like there's also more money that's going into the event as a one-off event. And I've really taken that into perspective. And I do realize that as I've ran my campaign since 2019, I do feel like we can utilize these funds to benefit more, utilize our funds towards school zones and pedestrian crossings and things like that before we get to school, like school time, the 9 months that kids are in school. I feel like we can utilize these funds because I see the need, and we all have schools in all of our wards. I think that we can utilize this money for more of those pedestrian signs like we have here on Community Center, where you press the button, it lights up, and I've utilized those, and those work so much better than just crossing the street without them. So I feel like they do work, and I feel like this is something that can be utilized towards that, and we can use the credit. We're going to be credited for this. Is that correct? Be credited
If that's the
next
choice
year.
we make.
That we can be credited next year, and we can utilize these funds to really benefit our community and really for our youngest residents and their parents, for more peace of mind. And this is something I've always been supportive, is pedestrian safety. And I think that we can really make that happen with the utilization of these funds. As much as someone who loves an extravaganza and everything, I feel like we can really make something that's going to last longer than half an hour. Something that could last a lifetime. Something that could save a life. So I'm in favor of postponing those funds, not utilizing them here this year, utilizing those funds towards a credit if we are able to. If we're able to credit it or utilize the funds at the same time. I'm not sure how that will work out, but I just don't think it's, I thought about this quite a bit this week, and I do want to say we should not utilize the funds for 2021.
Councilmember Wikovich?
Thank you, Mayor, and I really appreciate you letting me go not first, because I have gone back and forth kind of all week. I did have an opportunity to speak with a resident who made me think that perhaps we should do a standalone event. And so I was leaning more towards that. However, and then we got the email Joanna sent around today. So that's two residents that I've heard from, one on either side. And I was ready to come in here and change my position, but I wanted to listen to everybody, and listening to all the conversations so far, it kind of reinforces the decision I made last week. Cost is a big deal, and the staffing and pretty much everything that I mentioned last week. So even though I was ready to come in here and change my position, I think I'm going to stick with postponing.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I did not watch the video from last week's meeting, so I really appreciated not having to go third in this conversation and having a moment to hear where everybody's heads were. I'm definitely in the same place in that I think it makes a lot of sense to postpone the fireworks show to 2023. I mean, looking at this, we've got a contract for $50,000, and I really want to caution us from saying, we've got a $50,000 contract, let's take that 25 and put it towards something else. Because I think that argument could literally be made for every single thing in our budget. And so when we've got something that's budgeted, I think it's important for us to remember that there is a reason why we budget money for events, because they do build community and they do build safer communities. So I just wanted to address that. That was just something that stuck out to me that I thought it was important to highlight. And as far as next year, like let's do a blowout. I mean, I don't think that we're necessarily raising expectations for the future, so long as we message this in a way that says, hey, last year's fireworks didn't happen, so we're going to really go for it in 2023, right? Like, I think that we can set some parameters and have some fun, and I think that that's something that folks will appreciate. So I'm gonna, let's postpone this thing mood. Thank
Well,
you.
you and I are on the same page. I wrote that down as well. So I'm going to stick with my original as well, along with Catherine. I know we're outvoted. I just still want to make sure that residents understand that I do believe that we should do something this year. I think we owe it to them. I think they deserve a show. I think waiting till next year is the wrong thing to do. But as per our agreement, I will go forth 100% with the decision. As far as reallocating the money, well, a couple things. As far as doubling down and doing a blowout, I worry because we are leaving our residents in a place where they don't trust us. They don't, 3 years in a row, they did not get fireworks. So I would guess that some won't even bother coming next year. There is always the potential of rain or another technical issue next year. So now that we have said this could happen, it could be rain, it could be a technical issue. If we're going with the same vendor, that could also be something that our residents might question. Our fireworks show, as we heard last year, is limited to this location. So it's never going to be a blowout. It could be longer, but it's not going to be different. It's not going to be bigger. It's not going to go up higher. It's still limited. So all we're really doing is extending the amount of time, which is probably beneficial. As far as reallocating the money, I wrote that down as soon as that came up as a suggestion, because first of all, that's not how we do the budget. So we have to go through our prioritization process, our strategic planning process, and our budget process. And it sends a very odd message to our residents if we are suddenly like, oh, well, we'll take event money and put it toward public safety. It's like we didn't value it, but now we do because we have just a little bit of money. It's not really a lot of money. So that part makes me super uncomfortable, and I would not be in favor of that. But we definitely have more consensus to not do an event with fireworks this year. I'm very sad about that because I enjoyed fireworks at our rec center opening. I think it's definitely possible, and I think we're doing our residents a service. So, but that's just me. If anybody else wants to raise a couple of hands, Councilmember Kondo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. But I recommend that if we can, move money between different pots, that, perhaps maybe next year, instead of just being all fireworks, it's a hybrid fireworks / drone sort of event.
Oh,
Use drones,
just change.
which are more environmentally friendly anyway, as opposed to, burning gunpowder. So, I think there's options here to be a little bit more creative and use 21st century technologies. And we have the time and space to be able to plan and do that well.
Councilmember Brown?
Hi. That was bizarre. Hi. Brooke, can you check with Jason, or I guess with Heather, about not allocating that 50,000 in the budget next year? How do we make sure that we allocate it again in the following year's budget? You know what I mean? Because if we don't have it allocated to the budget, there's not a placeholder for it. And we do want to make sure that we pick up that 50,000 again the following year.
So you couldn't have teed that up any better. I was going to point out for the council that this current contract is part of a 3-year contract that we have, and that we basically extended this contract to this year. I would suggest that this is not necessarily an issue you need to resolve or address tonight, but can bring up during the budget process. You have a couple options. You can terminate this contract and get the $25,000 that we've already paid, or we can amend the contract and extend it to next year. If we terminate the contract, or if we don't amend and extend, we would go out and rebid an RFP. And I would suggest that every year since I've been here, we've always had a standing budget amount for this event, and we would continue to do that at council's discretion. But that to the end of what to do with this money, I would point out that we can have a more robust conversation about how much money to allocate and what to allocate it for during the budget discussion. But you also have the discretion in that conversation during budget to either amend and extend the contract to 1 more year, in essence, to have this 15-minute or 16-minute event for next year, or terminate the contract and go back out and rebid. So just want to put that out there. It's not a decision you necessarily need to make. And Diana, am I missing any points on that?
No, but can I clarify a little bit?
Sure.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. I'll try be a little less emotional than I was the last time I spoke to you. I went back and listened to the recording and heard myself, and I was like, wow, I probably could have done a better job, so my apologies for that. So I actually put my thoughts in order. The decision tonight, first of all, thank you all for giving this so much thought and consideration. It was definitely something that kept me up at night, so I'm glad that everybody else thought about it sincerely and came back with an answer they felt, I won't say comfortable with, but that they could live with. We are going to face some criticism, and I wanted to let you know that I plan on putting an article in the Connection and explaining what actually happened, and also explaining the robust conversation that council had and differing views, because I think it's important for our residents to know that these issues are important to them and represent the action that you took. So there'll be a Connection article in August talking about the fireworks, that they didn't happen, short recap, and then the decision to not move forward and to instead do something next year. But on the finances part, as you know, we'll all be coming and talking to you as a department, so this will be addressed during my department budget. I think it would be a lot cleaner if we would just get our $25,000 back. Just get it back and be done with the contract. And then when we talk about budget, decide how much we want to allocate for fireworks, which will help guide us in our RFP. And if we want to do something different, if we wanted to add drones, or we wanted to have a longer show, I'm going to recommend that technologically we not do it from the lake, that we do it from land, which would also change the bid because it's not as complicated as a setup. But we do need proximate fireworks, as the mayor said, which is a specialty item, special order, and more expensive than regular fireworks. So I just wanted to make sure you knew it's really 2 different things. You can extend it for a year and not get your money back, or we can get our money back, terminate the contract, and then talk about what we're going to do different in the budget. We wouldn't talk about it in the budget again if we extended the contract, because it would be a done deal, you know what I mean? So it wasn't quite clear. Does that make sense to everybody? Do you have questions?
No, it does, and that was actually Heather's recommendation, is that if we don't go with an event this year, that we just get our money back. it gives us much more flexibility.
Yeah, I think it does as well. Do you have any questions about anything that I've said or within the memo?
Councilmember Brown, did that help you?
That helped me immensely. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Don't want to forget about the money.
Okay. There you go.
So the consensus is we will schedule this next year. We'll take this up for conversation during the budget session under Diana's presentation, and we will determine size and scope and move forward with termination of the contract.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Paraphrasing. Well done. Well done. Okay.
Will they be able to bid on the contract if they want when we do the RFP?
It depends on what we do. I heard drones, and I don't know that they do drones. I think it's a further conversation, Councilmember Brown.
You funny mayor.
We'll get there. All right. Second item, we'll go back to A, Stonehawker Event Center feasibility study. You're going to
So-
present from there?
I will tee this up, and then I have Sarah Dusenberry, our senior planner, who will be
Hi.
walking you through the talking points in the memo. Just wanted to mention that this was part of the ideation process that we brought forward, and at the time, when we were going through that process, staff had thrown out a number of about $50,000. We sat down with the foundation, had a more detailed conversation, and identified that there was probably more to the scope than what was identified in the ideation. And so Sarah here is here to walk you through that, those details, and what we're looking for is consensus from council on whether or not to put together a budget package request based on the new information.
Sarah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So as Brooke mentioned, just kind of wanted to go through kind of how the scope has extended a little bit, but kind of the reason behind that is making sure that before we make this decision to kind of move forward with an event center, we have all the information that we're able to make as best of a decision as possible based on kind of the constraints and everything that's going on at the site. So the first one is that site evaluation. So really looking at kind of the components of the site related to topography, drainage, noise, light, infrastructure, kind of space for a building, that's another one out there, that kind of thing. So really making sure and understanding what are those constraints that the site might have, but also the opportunities that might be there, and really making sure to kind of help understand what the building and parking location and size could be on the site. And really also knowing that this kind of point will really help us inform the potential costs for the project. The next one is really looking at the historic resource impacts. Stonehawker is a historic site. Both the building and the land and structures there are a historic site. So really wanting to make sure that if we were to move forward with an event center, we are not diminishing the historic integrity or status of the property. Looking next kind of at the fiscal impact of this, so really understanding the fiscal impact of both the construction as well as the long-term operation. So really first looking at that construction would be including costs, things like infrastructure, the landscaping, parking, the construction of the building, pretty much anything that could go into putting an event center out there, that kind of what are those factors that may go into it, what may need to be mitigated, et cetera. And then continue with the fiscal impact, the operation side of things. So once, if we move forward with the event center, once it's built, what is that operation and maintenance plan? Could that look like? And kind of understanding the ongoing operational costs, the staffing requirements, and even a management structure for the facility, looking at potentially different options between third-party contractor, it being managed by the Historic Preservation Foundation, or being managed by the city itself. With all of that kind of information, understanding the cost of it, wanting to then do a cost-benefit analysis that would pretty much compare this with the market support. Understanding the long-term, will we kind of recoup costs, essentially? And what are those fiscal impacts kind of for both capital outlay, life cycle maintenance, all of that kind of going into the event center. Wanting to get a good, solid kind of program timeline and phasing plan, taking into things like design, the permitting, the site work, really how long is this going to take and how long is that construction going to impact residents? And then finally, speaking of residents, is really wanting to do public engagement. First, starting initially with the Historic Preservation Foundation, kind of that kickoff of understanding what are the needs for the site, but also working with Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, as well as City Council, and then especially that surrounding community, since Stonehawker is pretty much in the middle of Fox Run. So really want to make sure something like this isn't going to be too much of an impact on residents. So with all of that, we do contemplate that throughout this process, there will be kind of check-in points. If the site analysis comes up that it's going to be nearly impossible to put a building out there, we have a point where we can say, hey, this isn't looking great. Let's kind of suspend moving forward with the rest of the feasibility study. So we have these points to really make sure that we get the information we need without going too many extra steps if we already know it's pretty much a no halfway through. So with that, kind of the estimated costs we're looking at is $127,000, and those are definitely estimates, probably hopefully a little bit high, but kind of what we're looking at closer is to around that range as opposed to 50,000, because it's a fairly expanded scope, but to really make sure that this is a venture that really makes sense for that space and for the city. That's kind of what we're looking at for scope, so if there's any questions or anything.
Thank you, I
I
appreciate
would-
it. I did wonder,
Oh, I'm sorry, but I was just going to put a footnote on everything.
okay, I did wonder if our special guest wanted to say hello. Did you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm here tonight just to gather information.
Okay, it's just good to see you. You're just so far away.
You'll see me.
I'm so sad.
Brooke, go ahead.
So I just wanted to add a footnote to this, is that this exercise is more in keeping with what we did when we did the rec center public engagement process. It's a different scale and scope to that. But essentially what we tried to do is to look at the same sort of metrics that we did when we were evaluating the rec center, the community engagement aspect to that, to this process. And so it's more of the same thing that Sarah was mentioning, is that we have multiple stakeholders in this, and we want to make sure we're including all of them with the public engagement. And moreover, I think, as she said, there's a bunch of go, no-goes with this. But when we really started to sit down and think of this really strategically, we thought we wanted to come back with you first to bring this to light so that you could give us some guidance and direction on moving forward.
Councilmember Goff?
I guess my question is, I don't know, I probably know the answer, but, and you're thinking about like the, whatever, fiscal impact or one of these other estimated timelines. Just wondering, the costs of everything seem to be going up. And do you have, I mean, this is going to be a 9 to 11 month process. I feel like costs for things could change in 9 months. So just how are you going to be able to kind of work that into your decision?
Right, so with doing, if we were to put out the RFP for the feasibility study, the budget, kind of what we're looking at would be, oftentimes are included. So for that lifespan of the contract, it would still be that same price. So we were looking at probably, if we move forward, doing the RFP by the end of this year or this fall. So once that contract is done and that price is set, it should be kind of, it should be that same throughout that lifetime of the 9 to 11 months.
Okay, right.
Councilmember Kondo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious, when we think about putting in a new event center, just like how, whether it's restaurants, McDonald's, Walmart, they do the analysis to figure out the distribution of event centers. And I'm just trying to figure out if you all did that as part of your analysis. I mean, I'm just clicking on Google Maps here, and I see within a 5-mile radius of Northglenn, at least 4 or 5, maybe even 6 event centers. So I'm just trying to figure out how did we land on doing an event center?
Sure. I'll take that, and I'll allow Joyce to maybe chime in if I miss any of the details. But this has been a long-standing initiative that the Historic Foundation had initiated well before my time, to do some type of event center with the impetus to sort of be a revenue generator for them to do historic preservation initiatives. And so that was really what the underlying motivation behind this is. I would also suggest that the type of event center that we're looking at is probably going to be more a smaller scale than what you might otherwise see, say, over at the Delta or here at the Rec Center. So it's really going to be more geared toward like, weddings and things of that nature. But I think that's one of the things that we want to explore further and really understand, is there a market that will support this? And that's part of what I think we've anticipated as the cost benefit analysis, is to really understand what the market demand is for it and whether or not, it's a viable option from an operations standpoint, because that is a big question.
Thank you.
Pro Tem Wilford?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I remember when I was first elected to council, one of the things that we did was an idea session. We put all of our different ideas up on the board in the North Metro Fire Protection District's main building. And Joyce, former mayor and council member Downing, went around and lobbied all of our new council members about this idea, and she got me. And she got me because I was also sitting on historic preservation at the moment, and the amount of work that the Historic Preservation Commission has done over at the Speeds Farmhouse is remarkable. It is such a treasure in our community, and there have been events that have been held in that area for years. Everything from, the powwows to weddings to community meetings to business after hour events with our business community. And every time I'm in awe of what a beautiful area that is. And I'm really excited that we're talking about this tonight because it's 2022, and that was 5 years ago that we started talking about this. And I know that Councilmember Downing has been talking about this for more than 5 years. In fact, I believe she also had some architectural plans drawn up by one of the Historic Preservation Commission members. So I think this is a really exciting opportunity, and I think I really like the way that you all have laid out the different steps that we would need to take so that we're not just throwing $127,000 at a contract, and we're going piece by piece and being thoughtful about making sure that this works. The question that I have is around public engagement. Are you looking to hire a firm that's going to be doing the public engagement? Is that just going to be like a printing budget item? Like what are you imagining for the public engagement piece?
Likely it would be incorporated as part of the consultant that we would choose, or they could even, they'll have some contractor sometimes, but really looking at that as first kind of understanding from foundation and then kind of going through understanding if it's construction-wise feasible, and then looking with our residents, primarily initially, of course, those ones that are immediately impacted in Fox Run, but potentially can go farther. We haven't set up like a specific idea of what that engagement plan could look like, but would be working with the consultant to have them primarily be the ones that kind of spearhead it since they're already doing the work on the site.
Okay, that makes sense, and I appreciate that added background and context. I'm going to just continue. I guess the last thing I'll say here is that we talk all the time about wanting to put Northglenn on the map and create really special places, and this is an example of putting Northglenn on the map and creating somewhere really special for our community. I support it. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown?
I echo everything Jenny said. I know this has been near and dear to their heart. The one thing that when I go to Stonehonker that I hate is at Christmas time, without having a parking lot, you're driving into that dirt, you're doing more, my feet get muddy. I just think that we're doing a disservice to an absolutely gorgeous house, and they've done such a fantastic job and been so dedicated to the city. And, I think we're forgetting that they have had concerts over there. There's a lot of little community things that go on over there. My daughter was going to get married there. We changed it at the last moment. But I really am looking forward to this discussion. I thank you so much for being so thoughtful about really laying out the dollar amounts for us. That makes it very easy to be visible, and for me, especially, to really understand where the money would go and how it would be broken out. I also like the fact that, there are stops in it. This is a hard stop. If we can't get past this, then we're going to have to do a hard stop, right? And as far as an event center, I also agree with Mayor Pro Tem that we're not looking to blow out the rec center, you know. At one point we were talking about a shelter, you know, with a stage and, you know, that kind of stuff. So we're not looking to blow out the rec center or make it like the Arvada Center by any means. We want to give I'll just talk to me. Want to give Stonehawker the attention that it deserves after all these years and after all the hard work that the Historical Society has put into it and all, you know, everything. We have so few historical buildings still left in Northglenn that I think we would be doing an injustice not to at least move forward and see what we can do on that site. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I agree with all of those comments. Thank you for laying out such a very thoughtful presentation. I think it makes a lot of sense to tackle it in this way. And I think we should definitely check it out, look into it, see how far we can get through that list. Councilmember Wikovich?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to make sure I speak up as the liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission. I know that everybody is really excited and really passionate about this project. And it's been an idea for a really long time. And I've seen those plans. Aren't they from 2005, Joyce? Yeah. So this idea has been around for a really, really long time. And I'm really excited about it. And I know a lot, if not most of the members on the commission and the foundation, they've been around since 2005. So the support has been there and it hasn't gone anywhere. So I 100% support this project and the expense. And thank you, Sarah, for everything you did on this.
Thank you.
Councilmember Walker, do you want to weigh in?
No, ma'am. I echo everything.
Okay, just check.
Excuse me.
You good?
I support. I think it's a great idea.
Just checking in. Councilmember Kondo?
Yes, ma'am. I have one comment, and that is, I'm not sure if the order of your bullets here starts with site evaluation. Is that the sequential order of how we're going to do this, or
I think.
will the cost-benefit analysis kind of be one of the early phases where we decide whether it,
Sure.
you know, makes sense economically, you know, from a business perspective?
Yeah, I
How
will
do
tell
we
you,
sequence
this is the plan engineer brain working when we put this together. In that, what we try to do is before you can do this, the CBA, you kind of need to know the size and scale of the building and how much parking you're going to need and utility costs that you then dump into, you know, an ROI analysis and then really just try to work backwards from that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be, this is not prescriptive in any way. It's more or less just an outline of how we thought we could approach it. When we retain a consultant, if and at that time, we could sit down and strategically figure out how the best process to do this in the most cost-effective way.
Yeah. Because that's my concern is, and obviously I come from private industry, when you decide to do a new product development, you kind of do the market research and you figure out what your potential revenue streams are going to be, and you go through a very disciplined culling process and you figure out, okay, yeah, is this worth doing or should we put our money somewhere else? So that is my concern, is I want to make sure that, you know, any new exploit, you know, we diligence that and we make sure we know that, yes, it's worth doing the time and energy on that. Otherwise, yeah, we need to stop and put those resources somewhere else.
Appreciate that feedback.
Councilmember Jaramillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am in support of this project, but I just want to know, like, what can we expect? What's the new amenities? What else will be brought? I mean, I know there's, I mean, it's a, you know, a couple 100-year-old building. I mean, I know it needs to be taken care of, but I just want to know, like, what can we expect once it's finished? I just want to have an idea of, you know, I mean, I've been there for the small, you know, intimate musical events, but I just want to.
So, Councilmember, I'm going to answer that because this
Okay.
is just talking about the feasibility. We're just going to see if it's even a good idea.
Oh.
And then we'll start talking about design and amenities and all of that. That's not.
Oh, okay.
And maybe you want to attend some of the historical preservation committee meetings because I think they're probably having that discussion.
That sounds
But
great.
we just need to see if it's going to work.
Okay.
So are you in favor of looking into it?
Yes.
Great. I think you got consensus on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Around.
Okay, final item, pedestrian and roadway safety.
Okay. Just wondering.
And Kent Kisselman, our Director of Public Works, and Deputy Police Chief Randall Darlin are here to present. Good evening, gentlemen.
Snuck up on me. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us this evening. So yeah, this is going to be an update from we presented last year in July, and then we did a strategic plan in February, and so this is a further update on those items. Let me see if I can make this work. How do I help? That's a clicker.
The arrows on the greater less than.
Excellent. All right, so I did that page. So the purpose, again, is to update based on our strategic plan. We shifted our approach from collection to data sharing. We have a strong partnership with Adams 12. And what are our goals? Our goals are, again, to continue to mitigate high speeds on the roadways, reduce traffic accidents, consistent enforcement, and collaborate with the community. This is kind of our city approach. So all these things that surround the industry and improve pedestrian and roadway safety, all these things contribute. The street condition, sidewalk condition, school safety, the multimodal transit, traffic calming, traffic signals, and traffic enforcement. And if I didn't say, it may be easier along the way if you have questions on the slide, we can answer them as we kind of go instead of getting to the end and
Okay,
backing
I
up
will.
30 slides. And
That's great. I will look at my blue hand.
So what are we doing? What do we continue to do? We increased the financial investment in residential street program and the concrete program. We continue to have a strong partnership with Adams 12 on the school zone assessments. We're leveraging grant funding now. We're utilizing that. And we invested, you invested significant dollars through the grant in our traffic signal technology. So that project is nearly complete, about 65–70% of that is now up, and then should be done in the fall of this year. A couple years ago, we updated traffic calming policy. The chief and deputy chief have upgraded the traffic unit, and we're investing in new and better technology. So with the residential street program, most of you are familiar with this. The goal is to maintain the city streets at a PCI, which is a pavement condition index of 70. And of note, a couple years ago when you began investing the money, we put together a 5-year plan. This is year 3 of that plan, and we will have completed that plan in this 3rd year. 104th is paved, so that is.
I just wrote that down. Yay.
Yep, so that was it. Again, your council support and the use of the one-time funds has been, outstanding. And the PCI in 2019 was 60, and we're expecting they came out and did the shooting lasers earlier this year, and we're expecting that report. This slide is of real significance. You can see, the investment that you've made into the roadway program, really starting in 2020, and the lane miles and the streets that have been treated. So you're looking at 5.6 in that first year, and then down 2.4 and 6, and another, 2.4 in 2023. So significant dollars with significant lane miles of roadway improved, and that doesn't even, with the asterisk on the side, include the 120th project or what we're doing with Huron. And we're using the ARPA funding for the Huron project. Any questions on that page? No. How about cheers? No.
Yeah. No, that is pretty awesome.
Down there today.
Yeah.
And I would just mention that on the 120th is that's a TIP-funded project in which we're getting $8.9 million in federal dollars and approximately 1.8 million in Carl's Farm dollars as part of our local match for that project. We are working through the details right now of a local match with Thornton for their portion that goes from York Street, or from Claude to York. So as soon as we get the bids in, we will be working for that and hopefully bringing that to you here probably sometime in August or September.
Okay, I see 2 hands real quick. Councilmember Brown?
First of all, Kent, you could not see me, but I am applauding you so hard. Your team has done a fantastic job hitting my pressure points. So I have very little to complain about anymore, as far as the roads and all of that. So please know that I appreciate and I really respect the job that your team has done on this. I'm going to ask you a question because I'm going to have to jump off the meeting early. When is our section of Claude by M&O scheduled to be done?
This year.
This year. Okay. All right. I apologize, but I wanted to make sure that I got a chance to get it in.
Nope.
Councilmember Condo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on slide 7, I'm just curious, so, you know, obviously in 2020, you had 5.6 million, 2022, 6.2 million. It kind of does this seesaw pattern. Is that intentional? So for example, for the purposes of our upcoming budget exercise, you know, is it reasonable for us to think that, you know, 2.5 million is the right number for 2023, or how should we look at kind of these numbers that kind of go up and down?
For simplicity, what we did is we added in the arterials. We really have 2 programs, but we wanted to show the totality of what you have invested into the roadway. So we've included the arterials, which is a separate CIP line item, and the residential street program. We typically bid those out together to get benefit of cost. And so that's included. So for example, in 2023, we actually have $950,000 budgeted for the residential streets, and we have 1.5 budgeted for arterials. So that arterial would be like Huron or Irma. Similar to the one you see in 2022, we invested significant dollars into the residential street, which is, I think, like $3.45 million. And then the other 2.6 around that was invested in arterials. So arterials are much more, they're more expensive. A little bit more work goes into those with the mobilization and the traffic control and stuff. So we do separate those out, but for this presentation, we just wanted to show how great you've done and the investment that you've made.
Okay, so go ahead.
I would just add that last year during the budget process, council had a prescribed 5-year plan that had an increment to it. And last year, council requested additional funds be utilized out of the one-time reserve balance to sort of get us leapfrog ahead. So that's the reason why you're in part seeing a variation in year over year. But the original 5-year plan was more incremental and more balanced in that. It was just simply that there was reserve fund balance, and that council says, is there a way we can expedite?
Yeah. So really that spike in 2022 was really focusing on taking care of quite a few residential streets, it sounds like.
Yes, this year, as Brooke stated, that you added money from the general reserve to really
Got it.
power through the rest of the residential street.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that will likely happen once the PCI comes back in that Kent was referring to is that we're going to do another assessment and probably put forward a more detailed plan on how we would prescribe future dollars moving for under a 5-year timeframe.
And just when you're measuring the PCI, is that just a truck going around with a laser scanner and?
It's a LiDAR system.
Okay.
So it's more efficient and effective than what we used to do, which was we had 5 or 6 different engineers and staff people go out and evaluate the streets by street. And each one had a different opinion or perspective of what qualified as a X, Y, or Z. This is much more scientific and more data-driven. That takes a lot of the human factor out of the equation.
When you say LiDAR, it's a radar. So
That's correct.
is this a plane or a drone flying over the
No,
streets doing that?
it's a van, and it
Oh,
comes around, and it's a van, and it has the system all around it, and they drive around and they do the lanes, so.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah, the old system was, again, by hand, and it was through the Army Corps of Engineers, so you probably can appreciate how difficult that was.
Well, I'm in the Navy,
Yeah.
which is different than the Army. We think we're better, though.
So this is kind of, as Brooke alluded to, the pavement condition index on the far left. You'll see what the condition ratings are. You'll see in, again, the kind of, we do it every 3 years. So 2016, 2019, and 2021, we did invest in that Street Logics program. And so we are able to update that live. That is available on the website for any resident or anyone to click on their road and see when their road was completed, what their pavement condition index is, and when it's scheduled in cycle to be redone. But you can see our projections show, just a tremendous jump, taking from 19 PCI, actual PCI, to reaching that 70 goal as an average PCI, and then 63 to 75 on arterials, 60 to 69 on collectors, and local roads, 59 to 68. And I would just say that's unprecedented. I don't know any municipality around here that could match those type of numbers.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Kent, this is amazing. I mean, like, it really is. I don't have a question for you. I just really want to lift up how much work has been done since 2016, and where we are now is phenomenal. I remember having a conversation about the PCI and whether or not we wanted to change it or if we wanted to maintain the level that was set by a previous resolution. And we had a really, really robust conversation and decided to go for it. And you and your team did that. And so I just want to say thank you. I remember you came up with the idea around having an online map where residents could check out their road. And that just, it's far and beyond what I know other municipalities are doing, and it's so accessible. So I just want to say thank you and really applaud your team for this work because it's excellent.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And again, we couldn't do it without you. So
Well, and I do concur, because I'm looking at this and it looks like the presentation is celebrating us. Like, yes, we did fund it. However, we also pushed really hard, and you and your team did the work. So I completely agree. Thank you for the recognition, but this is on you guys.
Thank you. Oh,
Councilmember Kondo.
Can we, not to pound our chest, but I mean, should we put this, is this a connect sort of article sort of thing, or?
I don't want to jump ahead, and I would like to celebrate it as well, but I would really like to see the final numbers from our report from this year, the 2021, so we can actually see what that PCI rating is. And again, we're adding in the streets that we're doing in 2022 to make those 100 as well. So, we'll have that in another month or so, and then you'll have that information, not at the August 1st presentation, but before budget comes along, so.
I think this is a nice piece of good news that, demonstrates that we're caring about people, especially their cars, potholes and all this other stuff. I can tell you there was a time I did not want to drive on Washington. But now I do, and now 104th. So, if you heard me talk about demonstrable sort of actions that demonstrate how much we care about our residents in the city, I think this is a great example.
Similar to the concrete program, our goal is to repair damaged sidewalk. This is a difficult program, but it's very good that it's funded. But every year, we have an intern this year, and he's our walking PCI, and so he goes out instead of LiDAR. He goes out with GPS, and he sticks the pole on there, and he takes a picture, and he rates the sidewalk, and that's what he does. And he's been here since mid-June. And he's nearly done with the entire city. I mean, it's amazing. The kid is just a machine. And so we'll have a new PCI rating for our sidewalks again for next year, and we'll have that updated. But each year, we go around, and based on our data, we pick the sidewalks, and we put in a large contingency, usually 15%. And that usually gets sucked up as soon as we go out and start spray painting what stones are coming out, because it's kind of like ants. The residents come out and, and say, what about this one, or what about this one? And, it's curb and gutter. And then we say, we'll put you on the list. And, throughout the year, we're gathering lists. So this program is always full. And so that we're glad that, the $100,000 is put in there each year to fund this program. And we we also perform concrete work with our residential street program, so that those streets that have concrete that's included in there and not taking away from other residential areas that have impact. And we are, again, beginning to expand and look at other things There's something we're going to test with concrete coming up on Huron, because that is a concrete pavement section, but they said they can also do sidewalks, and so we're going to do a little test section. There's a company that does some grinding instead of just replacing stone. So again, we're looking to make our money go further, and we will continue to look at those things as we move into next year.
Ken, can I back up for just a second? When Councilmember Kondo said Washington, I had made a note. So I know we've heard from residents about the potholes, not the potholes, the manholes.
Manholes, yes.
Manholes, right. There is, have you driven that to check them out? There's one that's significantly hard, but someone has spray painted repair on it. And I wasn't sure if a resident did that or if our team did that, just to make sure they knew which one to fix.
And that's an Excel manhole, and so we've been trying to push Excel to get that fixed. And with this year's program, we partnered, with Liz. She's great at Excel and is, taking over, and so she's accessible. And this year we had Brandon, our contractor, who we really love and is doing a great job. They specifically coordinate directly with Excel and eliminate us as the middle person, so they can get those risers ahead of time. And then when we go do an overlay on a major street, they have those risers ahead of time, and that just didn't happen last year with Excel. They didn't get us the materials because we were playing, what are you doing with us? And so again, we're looking at better ways to communicate and coordinate, and I think we're doing that this year with this year's program. But we know that needs to be repaired, and we're working to get that done. But it'll be we'll have to cut that section out, put on the riser ring, and do a patch back. So
Yeah, okay. I just wasn't sure if someone on your team put repair on the sidewalk or if somebody else took some spray paint and reminded us all that one needs to be fixed. I just happened to see that. Well, thank you for that explanation, though. I didn't know anything about that, so carry on.
All right, traffic signals. So again, 2021, we were awarded the grant for $980,000 to upgrade the system. We're progressing through that. I think all of 104th is now done. The signal pole, we did a structural pole assessment. You'll see that up in the upcoming budget and presentation in August. In the years that I've been here, nobody's actually done a structural assessment on the actual pole. And so we did this year. And now we know what poles need to be replaced. And so we're appropriating or trying to budget for funding so we can do those in another kind of five-year plan. And the signage and signal timing will continue to, that's going to be an upgrade that we're going to be able to do live. Right now, Kyle is the only one who has access, so I'm constantly going into Kyle's office and looking at the traffic intersections, because it is really phenomenal to be able to see the live updates and just watch traffic at an intersection where we've never had that ability before. And again, with signals going into flash, it's a flip of a button or a push of a button now, instead of calling either a contractor or calling our team out and then having them physically drive to the traffic cabinet and then flip the lever inside the cabinet to get that out of flash. We're able to do it just instantly now. So
Kent, we're not doing 56K dial-up anymore?
right, no, we're doing great. These are just slides that we wanted to just include in here. We've had over the last several years, there's protective permissive at areas that are high traffic and the cars back up. And so, we've looked at 104th, I think 104th and Livingston is one where, the Livingston, you want the 104th traffic to continue to move, but if you're wanting to turn onto Livingston, you don't want to sit there for 4.5 minutes. And so we've changed some of the signals out to be protective permissive. And another one is on 112th and Washington. And we are going to add some signage on that. The drivers need to yield to pedestrians. That is the law. And that is what needs to be done. So I think they're good. We are mindful of the areas that we do them in. We surely wouldn't want to do this in high accident areas. That wouldn't be a good idea. I'm even questioning, again, a little off topic, but I question the one that Thornton put in on 120th. I believe it's on Grant or one of their roads there, and it's a protective permissive where you can turn freely left on 2 lanes, 3 lanes of traffic coming at you, but that's their business. So yeah, that's protective permissive signals.
Councilmember Condo?
Just a follow-up question. So this ability to monitor which signals are on the blink or going bad, you monitor that at the M&O site? Is there like a repeater that goes to, let's say, the Justice Center, so at least the police know also? Or how do the police know that there's a problem so that they might have to send a car out, what have you?
This system is for Public Works, so because the PD doesn't do the signals that are in flash. So if PD is out, what they have done in the past, or what they continue to do, is if they're out late at night and they see a signal that's in flash, then that's reported to our 24-hour hotline number, and then we're called. And again, historically, what we would have to do is call the on-call person. The on-call person would have to get from their home to our shop, get in their truck, drive to the cabinet, and do it. Now that can be done by laptop or iPad or phone. And so when we get this project complete, we'll have those technologies where we can just take that out of flash immediately.
Yeah, and I guess my point was, I mean, do you need to have an officer there to direct traffic, or is
No.
it just, it turns into the standard?
No, yeah,
four-way stop
it depends
signs
on the
or rules?
intersection. So major intersections will flash red all directions, so it's an all stop. Minor intersections will flash red in one direction, yellow in the other. So then it's a precaution for those other cars to go through, and the red flash needs to know that they need to stop. And we have the ability to control those and change those. And so those are all set according to average daily traffic and if it's a collector or arterial.
Okay, great, thank you.
And this is just a slide showing you how the protective permissive works. You know, again, you get a steady red arrow, cars go, then they get the, they get the steady green, and then after steady green, after they yield to pedestrians, they're able to continue on if it's safe. We started this last year. We started, increasing these PED buttons. We've kind of got a little sidetracked on these just because we've been focusing so much on the grant and the traffic signals. But, again, we're trying to upgrade those PED buttons and traffic signals. I believe Councilmember Brown had one the other night and called it in, put it in the system, and Jerry and Justin went right out, and I think within a couple hours, determined it was broken and replaced and back to activation. So again, we have a great team and they get out there and do that stuff. School zone safety, again, we continue to partner. We do school zone to improve the traffic around the neighborhoods. Most schools we know that don't have bus service, and the parents traffic in, and we continue our strong partnership with Adam 12. There's more school zone safety on this page. So you can see on here, including this year, all the schools that we have and what's left to do. And then once we're done, we'll circle back to the beginning again and continue our efforts. But you can see that we've done just about everything. And this year, again, Malley and Northglenn Middle School are being finalized, and we'll have those numbers for you at budget time to present what that looks like. Inclusion for construction in 2023, and also throwing in studio school that wasn't done in 2021. And these are the, kind of the dollars that have been spent or invested by you into the program. And so you can see, again, we are evaluating Malley Elementary and Northglenn Middle this year with our consultant, and our estimated construction costs for those three schools, which would be Malley, Northglenn Middle, and Studio School next year. That's kind of the number we're looking at. And we will be removing the signage around Global Village Academy. We'll be removing all those, and they'll be salvaged. We'll be able to reuse those school zone signs again. So, maybe we can use those around Malley or Northglenn Middle, wherever is appropriate. So they won't go not used. Connect Northglenn, my favorite topic. Okay, we received the grant. It's amazing. We received the grant 2021 for over nearly $600,000, and we have been working with CDOT for over a year. We have a meeting this week with CDOT, and we are all crossing our fingers and toes that meeting is successful, and they will finally release the funding so we can go out for bid on this project. you've heard me say it several times, it's going to be a game changer for us on the roads that we have, and they're listed in just a couple pages of what we're going to be able to do with these roads and the Connect Northglenn and the goal, the riding and the biking and the bike sharing, and it's just the connectivity that we've been looking for, and we're just waiting to kick it off. We also are applying this year, there's another Safer Streets grant, and we're picking new roads based on our Connect Northglenn to obtain another grant for next year. We're going to be give us a little bit more leeway on what that timing looks like, just knowing what we went through in this process. I remember being so excited when we received the grant money. We thought it was going to be like last fall, and then we thought it was going to be spring, and here we are summer, and now we're hoping for fall. So we'll continue to push and get as much as we can out of this program. This is just kind of a snapshot, hard to see a little bit, but we kind of tried to highlight, the measures, the solid greens are areas where we have implemented Connect Northglenn. The plan measures, surrounded in green and yellow. And then, the Safer Streets grant, you'll see all those red areas that we're waiting to get going when we get the clearance from CDOT and can just clear out. And we do have, I'll mention this briefly, we're going to partner next year as part of our arterial program with Westminster on 112th. I don't know if anybody's driven 112th west of Huron. It's terrible. So we're partnering with them and doing an IGA. And with the last time they did it, we didn't extend the bike lanes past our water plant. We fully intend to extend those bike lanes all the way to Huron when we redo that project and do the design. So that'll be a change that you'll see in construction next year. And Westminster will be providing all the plans. We're just supplying funding. Again, here's your Connect Northglenn 2021 Safer Streets. And this is what we're doing. And I just can't wait to do it. I just want to do it. And I know Councilmember Walker is waiting for that to do. I think Fox Run we're going to see a big change on Fox Run, when we can get out there. And we will, if we do get the contractor on board, we are going to make, I believe, that area priority number one. Let's get that done and out of the way and see how that goes.
And I would just mention with CDOT, for our 120th project, we have experienced the same challenge. We had hoped to have all of our clearances back in February of this year, and we did not get them until the end of May. So CDOT has a staffing logistics nightmare going on right now, and so this is not unique to this project or to Northglenn. It is a widespread issue that they're struggling with mightily at CDOT, so it's not unique to this project.
Traffic calming. So again, we changed the policy in 2020. We changed that threshold from 7 to 5. And then we added in the no need for speed program, the education, the enforcement, the physical areas, and then we continue to expand our toolbox. So I really believe the program is going in the right direction. You'll see that, in 2020, kind of when the policy was updated, the overflow that we had, and then in 2021, the ones that qualified, and then this year so far, we've had 4 areas, so, and none of them have qualified under the policy for traffic calming. That means they didn't meet the threshold of over 5 miles an hour. So I believe that's an indication of our message is getting out there, and the enforcement is working, the no need for speed is working, the community is hearing that, we're asking you to slow down in our areas, and we will continue on this path and continue to expand this program as we move into the out years. The No Need for Speed program, again, it empowers the neighborhoods. We believe it's great. We've had some challenging community meetings, but that's great. Lots of things come out of those. And then you'll see the neighborhoods that we've had meetings for listed there on the side. The Livingston, the 112th, Cuevas, Marion, Niver, 105th. And we're working on those temporary measures, and then we're working on making those permanent. 112th specifically, we're looking at, the residents came back and the consensus from the voting was that they wanted speed humps. And so we're putting together the plan, to where the speed humps will be, what the spacing will be. We're hoping to complete that by the end of July, share that with the captain of the area, and then get that out for bid and get that completed. Another area we did was, I believe it's Cuevas, maybe, could be Cuevas. We removed the rotary because we're redoing the road, and then we put up a four-way stop, and we've had several questions about, why did you put a four-way stop? Well, we only did it in a temporary manner, so after they pave, then we'll put back out the rotary, and then we'll be working for permanent measures as we get those implemented. This is one, Councilmember Brown left. So we spoke about this a couple weeks ago. I wanted to include this slide. So this was what we talked about. You empowered us to go out and do some community engagement. And so we have this, we updated this with kind of what I had briefly mentioned with the more robust striping. And we have the one that we presented the 2 weeks ago with the speed tables or elevating those crosswalks. And so what we're going to be doing in the next week or two is putting together a package, we'll go out to the residents and then expand that area slightly. We're not going to expand all of Irma, but a significant area around there. Take some communications and present them with the options of the striping and the speed tables, and then see where our feedback comes back at, and then we'll be presenting our findings to you and moving on.
Councilmember Wickowicz?
Thank you. Sorry, Kent. Going back one slide, can you help me with the last bullet, 105th Place, Washington Street to Leroy? I'm just not understanding how those roads connect, and I just want to make sure I understand the area.
That's a different Leroy Drive. That's Leroy Drive, so that's I believe that's a different area, not like the Leroy that goes around on Irma.
Oh, it is? Okay.
The industrial Leroy Drive that's off
Oh,
of
no,
Irma.
no, I know. I live like right off Leroy Drive, so I'm trying to understand. So what is the area? Is it on Leroy or is it on 105th?
It's 105th Place would be the area from Washington Street to Leroy.
So,
And that's the area that it encompasses?
yeah, but okay, so that just doesn't really make sense. So I'm trying to understand the area because 105th Place does not go up to Leroy. So I was just curious, is it on 105th Place or is it on Leroy?
I would need more clarification on that, and I'll have to look
Okay.
with Kyle, so I can certainly
problem.
provide communication on what that is and give you an
Okay.
update.
I was just curious. Thanks.
I apologize if that's.
No, it's okay. I just can't visualize that.
Can you take a, going to Washington?
Well, yeah, that's 105th, but it doesn't go to, is mine.
It could be Larson.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Any questions on the pilot observation, community engagement slide? Okay, that ends my time for a few moments. I will let Deputy Chief take over. Thank you.
So these are the road diet that have been kind of offered through the No Need for Speed program. Everybody's really familiar with it. Different opinions from different communities, and we've heard a pretty robust conversation. Each one of our ward meetings, our public safety meetings, we're seeing to get continuous traffic concerns and what different options we have for complaints of speeding. Current traffic enforcement. Historically, we disbanded the two-person traffic unit in 2017 due to manpower concerns and different issues that were going on within the department at the time. The traffic unit was reintroduced in 2020, one certified officer, and increased up to 4 officers. 3 officers were near full certification currently. So right now, we do have 3 certified traffic officers, all trained on the motorcycles. We only have 1 operating currently. We're looking at a lateral coming in as well. That's a certified motorcycle traffic enforcement officer, and he's also a trainer for the state of Colorado, so he'll be able to continue that training process for the Northglenn Police Department. Our directed deployment at high crash locations haven't changed much. 104th Avenue in Huron, 120th Avenue in Washington, 120th in Claude, and 104th in Washington are our main locations still to date. The No Need for Speed traffic calming process ongoing. And our participation in the CDOT DUI enforcement regional county efforts to combat street racing and The report for street racing and nuisance vehicle ordinance all kind of have come together in the last few months, right? Our nuisance violence ordinance passed last week. We'll be putting that into effect. Our nuisance vehicle ordinance, I'm sorry. Our street racing enforcement has been going on with our Metro Task Force for the last about a year. And our, regional county efforts are all part of that specific program. As you look at our 5-year traffic accident data, we're down a little bit for 2022. Not a whole lot, but we're down, 60 to 70 crashes this time compared to this time last year. 585 currently. Auto pedestrians were at 8, so a little bit of an increase over 2021, but down over the historic time frame, 2018, 2019, and 2020. Fatalities, we've had 1 thus far this year. That was a very, very high-speed traffic accident. It was a sort of a street racing incident, but a single car, right? Just really high speed, almost 100-mile-an-hour traffic crash against a fixed object, no other vehicles in traffic. That's our 1 fatality. We're actually quite lucky that wasn't 2 fatalities. There were 2 occupants in the vehicle, 2 brothers. 1 brother was pronounced in that accident, and the other survived with very minor injury. Unbelievable. Our five-year traffic, go back 1 more slide here. Our speeding citations, we're seeing consistent speeding citations throughout our timeframes here. 10 to 19, a solid increase. We're right on track for 2022 versus 2021 and earlier years. Our 20 to 39, we've already hit almost we're already exceeding our total for 2020. So you can see that 20 to 39 traffic speeding is definitely increasing. Our 40 plus, very similar numbers there. And our citations thus far year to date, we're about right on track for our 2022 versus our 2021 numbers. But we're seeing steady increases in those traffic violations and speeding violations in Northglenn in general. So our big jump, 20 to 39, really kind of emphasizes the fact of our speeding issues in Northglenn. We do have quite a bit of complaint. Now, those type of speeding conditions are often on our busiest roads and our most, our roads that have the best infrastructure for that kind of a speed. But nonetheless, we're seeing that increase considerably. Our future traffic enforcement, we increased the traffic unit by 2 positions in 2021. We're looking to try to get that up to all 4 officers in 2022, if not early 2023. Like I said, we do have currently 3 trained officers, and we'll be bringing in a lateral hopefully here in the next couple of weeks that would push us up to 4 ready and able to do those traffic enforcement models. And in the interim, because this is a very skilled type of a operation, it's a dangerous operation to do traffic enforcement on motorcycles. We're taking our officers who have trained but are not yet actually in the role, and we're utilizing them in that role so that they can maintain their skill level on days when we have additional staffing. So when we have additional staffing, we're putting those officers back out on motorcycles so they can maintain that skill, because it is a skill that diminishes without use, and increase traffic enforcement at the same time. Focusing on our enforcement and education, our data-driven analysis. We're tracking our monthly numbers on traffic stops, traffic citations, and speed violations. That information kind of goes out in the connection on kind of monthly. We're working on our directed deployment to our high traffic locations and our school zones. Those are our primary locations for our traffic officers, our motor cops. During the summer, our motor cops will move into more high crash areas than the school zones. And then we're continuing our participation in the street racing. And again, our ordinance passed last week will go a long way in helping us really work towards that eluding issue and the street racing issue that we've seen. When you look at the speed van, in 2023 budget package requests, there'll be a consideration for a speed van. There's a lot that goes into this, and it's an issue we come up with at every meeting. What kind of enforcement methods can we use? So this speed van, the package and the restrictions and the requirements that are required under the ordinance and the state statutes for this, the restrictions, requirements, state statute, equipment, and personnel must be considered. So what really comes into play here is that You can only utilize the van in certain locations. So the speed vans are utilized in certain locations. It has to be a location that's 35 miles an hour or over. And it's not just equipment. It has to be manned by an individual, a person that's trained in radar. So that person has to be certified in radar. They do not have to be a sworn peace officer. So we can use part-time employees to do that task, and we can use individuals that are trained specifically in radar and not a fully trained officer to do that. So it'd be a much lower cost than sticking an officer out there to operate the van. It has to be, again, used in 35-mile-an-hour locations, and then the personal service is not required for required for compliance. However, what this van does is generally relies on voluntary compliance. So the first 2 notifications to the individual would go out through mail. If the individual who violates the speed violation, has incurred the speed violation, pays the fine, that's fine. If not, we have to go out and personally serve that individual and the owner of the vehicle with that service citation in order to collect. So it does not assess a point on your license. The fine is capped at $40 by the state statute. So when you start to look at the costs of this, there's only one company that provides this service in the Colorado area. It is a leased equipment service. It's essentially a subscription service type, $52.50 a month, plus an additional $2 per ticket when we exceed 500 tickets during the year. The required third-party service to maintain does not include personal service citation, so it only includes those first 2 mailed attempts to collect. If the individual does not pay the fine, that would come back to the police department or some method within the city to do that personal service citation, and it is not included in that cost of $52.50 a month. Part-time employees required to operate the speed van and certify them in radar, about $2,400 a month for the individual. If we were putting that vehicle out there about 4 times a week, 4 to 5 times a week, which would be necessary to really make this kind of a beneficial program in the city, because we'd need to collect 192 citations per month is just the break-even point. And you can only cite, again, 35-mile-an-hour roads and above only, which really does limit Northglenn, because most of our roads are under
The slide
35 miles
says
an hour.
or less.
Or less.
35 or less. You just said or more. So which one is it? So if you go back to this previous slide.
I'm sorry, it is 35 miles an hour or less. So it's our slower streets. I'm sorry, my mistake.
That's
Yep.
okay, just check.
Yep, and then, so it gives us a good number of streets, but a low speed threshold. And it will only cite for 11 miles an hour or over. There is a 1 mile an hour restriction on the radar. So it gives a 1 mile an hour error up or down. So they will not write the 10 mile an hour and under ticket. It will only write the 11 mile an hour or over ticket. So it'll be if you're in a 25 mile an hour zone, it needs to be a 36 mile an hour before it will cite. If you're in a 30 mile an hour, it needs to be a 41 mile an hour violation before it will cite. So it's always an 11 mile an hour over under the process that this particular company offers.
Can I ask a question?
Sure can.
If you go back a slide.
Yep.
It says that it'll be in the budget package request. I appreciate the heads up because I think we had talked about as a process, are we going to go through and nitpick all of the ideas? We don't want to do that. But I do have a wondering, and maybe I missed it, but where did this come from?
Where did the speed van come from?
Where did the idea come from?
So it's actually been in prior to my arrival last year, it's been talked about at different community meetings and been talked about within the organization as a methodology to try to abate some of the speeding concerns, because it is our absolute number one concern at any community meeting that I've been to, right? So this has been an ongoing discussion, my time frame here, that this is one of the possible solutions to this particular complaint within the community, right? Because putting officers out there specifically enforcing just speeding is a very high tax as far as resources are concerned for the department. Putting a lot of training, a lot of physical safety issues with the motorcycles and putting them out there, getting the traffic unit up to 4 persons. At times, we've been able to get it up to 2. We now have 3 trained, but with attrition and promotions, we've lost both of our traffic officers to promotions to sergeants in the last year. And that attrition rate continues to be a difficult position to fill those traffic officers. We've never quite gotten to that 4th position. So this was another methodology, another means by which we can increase that speeding complaint and enforcement within the community and try to respond to the community complaints with traffic violations in Northglenn.
Okay. I'm just looking at the bullets, and I personally don't support this idea just based on cost and the limitations that it has. So I was just wondering where the idea came from. I mean, I know it's been mentioned casually. I think this is the first time I've seen it in an actual breakdown specific.
Yeah,
So
and
I appreciate the information. It's not my favorite idea, but
so there are some pretty strict, the statute is pretty restrictive. It has a very specific purpose. It caps the fines. It doesn't provide any penalty for the licensee that's driving and getting the speeding ticket. The fine is very nominal. $40 isn't gonna rake in a lot of money compared to the cost of the actual enforcement tool that's being utilized. So it's a very moderate approach. I think that the implementation of this would be something similar to the fact of a break-even point for the city and, making sure that we cover the budget costs of it in the fines, and that's probably where it would be. But it would absolutely be that visual deterrent and that visual commitment to the community that we're going to go out here and attempt to bring down that speed in the residential areas and in the school zones and in the areas where this would be truly effective. So it's a really delicate balance to kind of go through when you look at it. From a cost perspective, it's not going to be very cost effective. A break-even point is that, couple hundred tickets per month, which probably isn't really that difficult to attain, but we're not, again, there's a collection piece to that as well. If I just do the math for $40, yeah, it's a couple hundred tickets, right? But we got to collect that $40 as well. So it's not just as simple as saying, oh, it's an automatic, right? Because there's really no methodology. There's no personal service to a driver who's going to show up in court to say, oh, I'm going to pay this fine. There's more to the pieces of the puzzle that would be required to collect that $40. However, from the perspective of visibility and the community seeing this and us saying, hey, here's how we're deploying it and here's what we're doing to reduce speed in the community, there's a tremendous plus on that side of the equation.
I don't see a bullet for that one. Councilmember Goff, you have quite a few questions
Yep.
here, so we'll just pause. Councilmember Goff.
Thank you. So I think I have a couple of, my first comment is that just according to the chart that you showed us previous year's number of citations, getting $200 or 192 citations a month looks like it could be a challenge. And I understand if we have the van, we'll probably get more. But on the other hand, I do know that there is a perception out there, not just our residents, but probably everywhere, that when cities put up the red light cameras or these vans, there's this perception that it's all about collecting money for the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like the negative perception or whatever that people have when they see something like this. And I understand that, we also have a lot of residents that want to see us doing more to cut down on speeding. I guess I'm just really kind of wondering how effective this speed van thing really is. Because, I've seen like Denver use them for a while, and then sometimes they don't. And so I'm just not sure that, it's really worth it just to have our residents feel like, some residents feel like we're doing something.
So from a 10 to 19 mile an hour on slide 20, you can see that year to date, we're at 440, right? And that's with officers, making that stop, handwriting that ticket, getting the interaction with the community. From a 200 tickets per month standpoint, I don't think it's problematic when you're putting the van out there because it's going to read every car. It's just going to mark the car that was doing the speeding, hit the license plate. There's no interaction, there's no stop of process. So from the perspective of getting the 200 tickets per month to really kind of break even, probably not super taxing, right? Probably manageable, but we would have to deploy it multiple times per week, and we would have to strategically deploy it too. Locations it would change behavior as you moved it through the city. So, and there's additional cost associated with the part-time employees that would be needing to be in there as well. So, from the perspective of, can we get to 200 tickets? Yes, I think we would be able to get the 200 tickets. From the perspective of community presentation, yes, there's a plus there. But you mentioned, and many people also often believe that this is just a money grab, right, by government. And that would be something we would have to overcome with education and process.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've actually heard that from residents about our fireworks ordinance. So, it's a little bit different there. But then we've also done some thoughtfulness or some working through places that we can actually park the van. I mean, some of our streets are kind of narrow. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, there's infrastructure issues, right? We have to park the van, we have to give warnings, put signs out away from the van in direction so that it gives a visible warning for individuals. And we'll lose some level of ticketing due to those circumstances as well, because again, infrastructure matters and will have to be placed very specifically and with purpose, right? Again, I'm trying to be very unbiased as I present the process. There will be difficulties, but if this is something that council says, hey, we want to move forward with, then we'll find a way to make it work within the communities where we're seeing these issues and getting these complaints.
If I may, Councilmember Goff, I think one of the things we could do is reach out to the vendor and see if we can get some data on where in other communities this is deployed, and look at the amount of daily traffic that goes through those particular streets, and kind of see if we have comparables to that, to sort of see what sort of revenue it generates. I would suspect that if we have areas, say like Claude or Irma in the residential sections where we have people constantly complaining, we put the vehicle out there and that would help identify and validate whether it exists or not. I think another component to this is that if we deploy a speed van, and that's something council is interested in, the deterrence factor could actually, if it's underperforming, could actually be a sign that it's working. So there's that aspect to it as well. But I think to your first concern, we could reach out to the vendor that does the leasing and see if we can get some comparables in other communities based on roadways and amount of vehicles that travel those, and see how they perform in those situations.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, thank you.
And I think what we would do is we'd bring that back for the budget discussion.
Councilmember Walker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Chief, just as a few clarifying questions. You said there's only one vendor that does this, and the 11 mile an hour is the kind of that buffer zone. Is that, and forgive my ignorance, for the state statute, or is that all the vendor can do? Because I thought with the lease, maybe we can write in a different term, maybe make it a different mile.
My understanding is that's their threshold, is the 11 miles an hour. So 1 mile an hour margin of error, and the process for them to issue the citation and move on from there is that 11 mile an hour threshold. Now, potentially, could we bring that down? We could review that. That's not something that I have an answer to today, but it is something I can look into and find out if that can be brought down to another level.
Is that lease price based on a year's lease?
It is.
Okay.
It's based on a year's lease.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Luckman-Hiramas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think a couple of the questions I had were answered. My question was to that effect that Councilmember Walker just asked. So if we have a lease, my question was how long would that be? So if it's underperforming or we're not making the revenue, we're stuck in for the 12 months, so to speak.
Yes, we are.
And I've heard this at every community meeting. Every resident is like, why don't we have those vans? Why don't we just put this? And I know the discussion has been had, well, it's not, you can't just leave it there. They have to be manned. But I'm sure they don't understand or, don't have an idea of how much, like I didn't know what the cost was. That's quite a substantial cost, much more than I thought that would be. So this is very, very helpful to kind of gauge that, how much that is per month. Because, I mean, that's quite a bit of money, you know, in terms of, I understand and I support that we need to move towards more data-driven policing and technology-driven policing. I don't know if block is something that's going to be evaluated at some point in time, and I know that's an additional cost and a subscription as well. I'm a big fan of that in terms of
Flock will be part of the
technology.
budget as well.
Okay, fantastic, that's excellent. I had a couple of questions here, I'm trying to make sure I don't repeat myself. So for staffing, since it requires staff, not necessarily sworn, do we have that, do we have staff available now to cover that, or is that something that would require additional
It would require 2 part-time positions if we were to, additional to what we have currently in the budget, yes.
Okay. And then my question was, had we done any research to see how it's working in other cities? But I think that's something that would come out with, I guess, your request.
I was just,
Company.
we can do some further research and see, like, how many people they work. I know that, you know, City and County of Denver has them deployed everywhere. And on Spear Drive,
Spear.
pretty much Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm just kidding, I don't know.
No, I know, really slow there. So that was one of my questions, just to justify whether that cost, or if that's, you know, a cost that would go into something else. Smart, you know, that's, I know that's a completely separate discussion, but okay, I think that's probably enough of my questions.
And just to clarify, we would want to use part-time employees for this because that's the most cost-effective way to do this. We wouldn't use sworn personnel. That individual officer could be utilized in a myriad of ways that would be far more beneficial than the speed van. So this would really be a part-time employee type position.
Yeah, and do we have an idea? I know that's the budget request. Do we have an idea of what that is? Out of curiosity?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was kind of preparing budget stuff today, and it was roughly $72,000 for 2 employees, part-time, roughly 72, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'll
It'd
stop
be
there.
around 60. And that's just salary based off the 2,400 a month.
Yep.
And then that's not including benefit, not so.
Total
Another,
of 2.
yeah, it would be 2 part-times, is that?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate this information, and I appreciate you trying to be creative and responsive to concerns of neighbors. As I was listening, I was like, oh, well, that's interesting, and I thought of the speed vans in Denver on Spear, and I also remembered how many times I wasn't going the speed limit driving down Spear and how many times I didn't get a ticket. But I have to say I'm not totally on board yet or convinced. The 11 mile an hour over the speed limit just is really concerning because I think, you know, if you were to park this vehicle over on Naiad right near Danahay Park, you're like 11 miles over the speed limit is just, it rises to such a significant level that I don't know that we're actually going to be solving the problem there. And so I really question the effectiveness in the neighborhood and if it would make a difference. I guess the other thing is it's really expensive. And this is only one van. And we're a city of 38,000 folks, and we're a lot larger and populated during the day. And so I'm not convinced that one van is going to move the needle enough at 11 miles over the speed limit. Additionally, I think one of the things that we all know is that behavior change comes through conversation and through contact. And so I think if we're really committed to behavior change, then we need to continue to invest in people. And that's what I would prefer to see in lieu of a van.
Councilmember Walker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, and I don't know if I need to ask for direction on this, but Deputy Chief, would it be okay for you to find out from the vendor what we can ask?
Yeah, we'll dig up as much information
Okay.
as we can on what our limits are.
that threshold is a
Yep, yep.
sticking point.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. No more hands. Go ahead.
All right. Let me see. All right. And we're back to cats.
And only 3 more slides.
I will not go down the rabbit hole, but I do want to say, just talk briefly about the speed van. I think the speed van is used as another tool in our toolbox. And so if you think about how our process is now working, we get a call from a resident and they say they're speeding in the area. We contact and make a commander person, and they come out and they get the 5 signatures. Then we implement the speed study, and the speed study comes back and says, okay, either 85% of these people are speeding or they're not speeding, and we do no need for speed. I mean, the interim, while that's happening, we have the speed trailers, and we deploy the speed trailers. And though we have 4 of those now, and now we have the ones that collect data. So we're physically, again, and you've heard me mention about the data collection, and we're upgrading those things where we're even the ones that we stand on a pole are data collecting all the time now, instead of those 7-day periods where we're just doing the study in between. So if you think along those lines and you say, there is speeding in this area and it is 7 miles an hour over, and we do need to put some physical measures in. If you think back to a couple weeks ago, just at the Irma, and again, I don't want to get you into dollars, but just those 4 speed humps at that intersection was well over $100,000. So if you put that into perspective of a speed van, that's just another tool that we're able to move around and mobile and pair it with areas that we have in the residential street where, we know when we do that first initial study, we know that there's 1,300 cars a day on average that go there. And we can see the splatter plot that shows how many of those vehicles are traveling. I would be curious. I think 11 miles an hour is way too much. But if we can pair it, or it can be paired to match our traffic calming plan, I think it could be an effective tool, another tool in our toolbox. So that's all I wanted to say on with respect to that, and we'll move on. But I wouldn't just dismiss it. I think some more information is definitely needed, but I think it could be a beneficial tool to all the tools that we already have. So what are we doing next? We planned on doing a 5-year transportation plan, and we wanted to do this transportation plan a couple years ago, but with all the things that we were doing, we decided to push it off. I think 2023, we're ready to begin that process. And so what are we going to do? I think a lot of it's going to be with Brooke and I working in a team, working with a consultant, putting together a scope of work, bringing that before you. What does that look like? What does it entail? Right now, there's a lot of things that we would like to bring together. Connect Northglenn, other plans and studies that we've done, the structural analysis, and bring all those documents into one unifying document. So that you'll see that in the 2023 budget presentation on August, and that's what we would like to do as far as transportation plan.
And the only thing I would add on that previous slide is when we talk about public transit and whatnot, and integrate existing plan efforts, we're also thinking about Title VI issues in terms of at-risk population and pedestrian deserts, bike and things like that. So it's too many bullets to put on a slide, but didn't want to lose the moment to mention it, so.
And this was our planned stakeholder group, and this was brought up last July, and again at the strategic planning session. So we just wanted to kind of provide an update. So we're still working on putting this together and what this will look like. But again, I think with Heather, Brooke, and myself and the chief working together of what this looks like as a community and a kind of not necessarily a task force, but getting input from members, residents from each ward, and maybe a liaison from council or from leadership team, and what does that look like? So we want to continue to move this needle forward. So we are being thoughtful in how we put that together, and I believe by the end of 2022 we'll have a more maybe a more succinct plan of what that would look like, and again bring that back to you, present that to you, and see what your thoughts are, and move forward on that. And that is, well, we have moving forward. Again, we want to, continue to use strategies and tools. And then if you have any new tools or suggestions for us, we're welcome to listen to those ideas and try to move forward.
Thank you. Council have any more questions or comments?
I do. Yeah, so in Denver, I've personally received speeding tickets on Santa Fe Drive, with, I don't know if it was the speed trailer or something similar. And I mean, it took a picture of me sitting in front, driving, license plate, sent me a ticket. Is that something we can utilize instead of, purchase it and move it around, mobilize it as you mentioned?
So Denver has a little bit of its own rules in regard to the speed vans and the red light cameras, and some of the jurisdictions have different abilities for those particular statutes based on population and other issues. For us, we would need to use a manned van, a manned vehicle, or I guess we could use a trailer, but it would still have to be operated and staffed by somebody that's radar certified at all times while we're manning it or while we're operating it.
Councilmember Lukeman Hiramasa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are the speed trailers that collect data, are they proving to be effective? I know we only have a couple, right?
We had 2, and then last year somebody destroyed the solar panels with baseball bats, and so it took us a while to replace those 4, and we just got them in. And we're working with Deputy Chief and his team to get a new list for deployment on those and get them out on a more regular basis of where we're hearing. Again, when our traffic team meets with the police traffic team, and as we develop those areas of high concern, then those are where we want to deploy those and begin collecting the data. So no, we don't have a lot of data on them right now.
Okay, it was just a thought, like with those, getting more of those and placing those around neighborhoods versus a manned van be something that is feasible too. I don't know. And those are like 10,000 each or something. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's one of the strategies that I absolutely want to utilize for our community, and to be more strategic with them, utilize some of our CPAN members to actually deliver them. However, they do have some limits, right? So they are susceptible to damage, and they are expensive when they're damaged, so they can only be placed for short periods of time. We can't leave them out overnight. We can't do that type of an activity. It just doesn't, it's not very effective. We have to keep an eye on them, or they will be vandalized at some juncture. So it's not a super restrictive. They can be used overnight, but they can't be left in locations for days without, movement and interaction, because they will be damaged, and they are quite expensive to repair. So it's one of the strategies that I have with our traffic unit. And the 4 are we had 2 for a while, and then I think we got to 3, and then due to damage we got down. Now we're back to 4. So.
Wow, I had no idea. Thanks.
Yeah, and people just become immune. I mean, you put it out, and like 7 days is probably the effectiveness of a speed trailer, because people will see it, they initially slow down because it scares them, and then, you take it away, and then that's when you bring in the enforcement on top of that to see like, oh, is there a comfort level? Have you learned your lesson? Or again, if you use like a van on top of that, or deploy the motorcycles, then, that's when you that's when you catch them. So it's a training exercise.
Any other questions or comments? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have come to the end of our agenda. We are adjourned.
Where do you want to go?